Sup, guys? Gonna have one actual play I'm gonna be talking about in the NBA as we have like a full NBA slate. Did not get started out the right way last night with the NBA. The Lakers, they fell down quite a bit early, but by the end of the game, like mid fourth quarter, the Lakers are actually like winning that game statistically in most of the important categories in rebounds, points in the paint, shot attempts, and it was just Denver was like 40% from 3 point range, 50% from the floor. It's hard to overcome really good field goal percentages like that, and that's just kind of what did the Lakers in. So not great on that one. I won on the New York Rangers. That got a little bit tense. Even though they basically held Calgary scoreless for the entire game. Calgary scored like right at the beginning and then did not score again. It was a really good performance from Shesterk and the Rangers goalie. He should be like the MVP of that game or whatever you want to say. They give out like the star performers or whatever they are, the top three in hockey. I don't know if he was, but he was like the star of that game for sure because if you watch the third period in that game, even though the Rangers had a really good second period where they scored all their goals, it got dicey, even though they maintained the 3-1 lead for the rest of the game. The third period was like, it felt like the puck was, I had it on, and it felt like the puck was just in the Rangers zone like all period, basically. Calgary had way more scoring chances, but they were kind of in desperation too, so they were just kind of just taking shots all over the place or trying to get shots all over the place. So that kind of had something to do with it too. But they definitely had some chances where it looked like they were going to score multiple times in the third period. Luckily, that did not happen, and the Rangers were able to close it out. And then just, Calgary made some dumb penalties right at the end with, I forget who it was. One of their players kicked Shesterkin's stick, which he had dropped it in this like skirmish near the end, and then one Calgary player like kind of kicked it, maybe intentionally or unintentionally, kind of out of his reach. He was complaining about that even, which I would too. But then the other Calgary player, I forget who it was, kicked it like even further, like almost all the way like up past like the blue line, which is just crazy. And the refs had to call that a penalty for interference, which they did, and that pretty much sealed the deal for the Rangers. Calgary getting frustrated at the end there. It actually ended, I think, with the Rangers with a two-man advantage at the end with another penalty at the end. But sportsmanship, maybe not the strong suit of the Calgary Flames. But anyway, I put out these other leans that I put out on these videos, by the way. They're not intended to be that strong. It's just that I talk about like these isolated like primetime games just to give my thoughts on them because they're primetime, they're on TV, and if people want to know what I think about them, that's basically it. I'll tell you if I have an opinion that's like stronger or whatever, and you'll know what my strongest are because I'm actually betting the strongest ones. But we move on. I was actually right about both college football games last night, even though the market shifted on them. And I was right about baseball being an under, which the bullpens did pretty well in that game and held the score completely in check for like the remaining innings in that game. A 4-2 final. Congratulations to the Arizona Diamondbacks, who are going to be playing against the Texas Rangers. And I don't think anybody predicted that World Series matchup, but that will start, I believe, in 2 days. On Friday, I think, is when that starts in Texas. I'll have some thoughts about that then. Let's move to tonight. We have two more college football games, which I think are, again, more Conference USA midweek games. I don't know who Conference USA is paying money to here, like the ESPN network or whatever. They get all these like primetime isolated games in the middle of the week. So good for them, I guess. Jacksonville State, Florida State is the earlier of the two games by an hour, 7 p.m. Eastern. Jacksonville State is up to like above a 7.5 point favorite. Now it looks like they're going towards 8 on the road. It looks like 67% of the cash, but 64% of the tickets. So it looks like there is some money, I guess, driving Jacksonville State up. I can tell you right now, I don't agree with it. Jacksonville State, as I kind of mentioned yesterday, I think they've been overrated a bit. Their record is good, and I think their record is better than what it should be, even though I don't think they're a bad team by any means. I think they're overperforming is this year. Well, maybe not overperforming is the right word. Well, yeah, overperforming. I do think they are, but they're definitely exceeding expectations this year as well. And they've been one of the top teams in this conference, which is crazy. But this spot that they're in, I don't think is good whatsoever. So they're coming off a game against Western Kentucky, who's one of the named teams in this conference. Who's I think they're top 4 in the conference. I mentioned them yesterday. They were playing. Jacksonville State had a tough game against them. Western Kentucky was a 7.5-point home favorite in that game, I believe. Western Kentucky led for a bunch of the game. I think they were up 2 scores in the second half, holding Jacksonville State in check. And then Jacksonville State had this flurry at the end, tied it, and then wound up winning on a field goal right at the end, a last-second field goal. There was some celebration involved there from Jacksonville State. That's a pretty big win for them. They beat Western Kentucky, who's one of the best teams in the conference, one of the better teams in the conference. Big win there. Jacksonville State kind of proving themselves, because I think they lost to Liberty at some point earlier this year. You can correct me if I'm wrong about that, but they finally get this win against one of the other top conference teams, which is a big win, almost kind of like a legitimizing type of win in dramatic fashion. They're coming off that, and who do they have up next? They have South Carolina up next, who is, of course, we know, an SEC team, and that's one of the biggest opponents that Jacksonville State is going to get. It's probably I think it must be their biggest opponent on the season. They get an SEC team, so I think this is basically a sandwich for Jacksonville State. It's almost a play that I was about to bet, but there are a couple of things that make it a little bit iffy. One being the market, which I said the market actually looks like there's a little bit more money on Jacksonville State, although I think the situation counters that for the most part quite well. It is like a sandwich for Jacksonville State. Big win, dramatic win they're coming off of against Western Kentucky, and big game up next against South Carolina, which is, whenever you play an SEC team and you're a Conference USA team, that's one of the big spots on your schedule. So I think they could look right past Florida International, which is who they're playing here. They're playing them on the road. Florida International is kind of a strange venue to play in on the road as well. I've found it seems like teams tend to have difficulty when they have to go there on the road, even if they're in that conference and they're somewhat familiar with that venue. Florida International tends to step it up a bit at home. I think that might be what they're going to do here. Florida International, they have a couple of situational angles on them that kind of go both ways a little bit, even though I do like them in this game fairly strongly, almost to the point where I kind of want to bet it. But Florida International, they were on a losing streak, and they finally cracked the losing streak, which I think is good. I think that helps break that negative momentum. It was against Sam Houston State, who's at the bottom of the conference. I think they're still winless maybe, but it's still a big win. It's a good win to end that loss streak, and it kind of can help you refocus and completely change your negative momentum. That's a bad momentum stopping win essentially that can give you some positive momentum. So I like that in favor of Florida International. Jacksonville State, Sam Houston State, I think is actually a little bit better than what their record makes them look like as well, because they have had some tough games on their schedule as well, which I've mentioned as well. I don't think they're quite as bad as what their record indicates. But that game, Florida International, they kind of barely escaped it, and it was a 2 overtime game, so that was kind of a tough game too. And in this matchup, Jacksonville State actually has 1 extra day off, because I think Jacksonville State played last Tuesday and Florida International played last Wednesday, so Jacksonville State has that 1 extra day off. I don't know if that matters much really at all. Slight extra rest. I don't think it matters when they're in a game where I think they could overlook their opponent quite easily with Florida International. But Florida International coming off a double overtime game, and the market is those are the things that make me a little bit hesitant about it. But I like Florida International pretty strongly, I would say, plus the 8 points or 7.5 here as the home dog. And it looks like the total's gone up from 45 to 47, but that's still a low total for a college football game, pretty low total. So that means the points are more valuable as well. So I would take the points at home with Florida International in that one. The other game is UTEP at Sam Houston State. Sam Houston State's up from -3 to -3.5, even though it looks like they have 82% of the tickets, but only 77% of the cash on them. So it looks like there might be some of the bigger bets going against them on UTEP. Sam Houston State, I just talked about. I actually I lean to Sam Houston in this one slightly. They're still a winless team, but like I said, they played a few bigger conference teams to start the season. BYU, even though they're down this year. Houston, even though they're a little bit down this year, they're still in the Big 12 and playing pretty competitively. And Air Force, those are their three games to start the season, with two of them on the road. And Air Force is the best of the military academies this year. They're pretty good too. So that's a tough way to start that schedule for Sam Houston State. And then they lost by 7 to Jacksonville State, and then 5 to Liberty on the road. And those are like the teams with the top 2 records in this conference. And then New Mexico State right after that, who's one of the top 4 teams in the conference record-wise as well. So Sam Houston State has not really had an easy schedule here. They're up against UTEP. UTEP, the reason that I lean Sam Houston slightly is just because UTEP has a couple wins on the board here. They're 2-6. Sam Houston's 0-7. Like, nobody's going to really want to play a team, a team like Sam Houston that has not even won a game yet. People are going to look at this and think, like, why is Sam Houston a favorite when they have no wins and they're playing against a team that does have some wins? And this line is really indicating that Sam Houston is the slightly better team, and I think that's correct. I think they actually are. I think the line should actually be maybe slightly a little bit higher than it is. And UTEP, I would say they're not totally in the best spot either, because they're coming off losing to New Mexico State, even though they lost by 28-7. New Mexico State's one of the better teams in the conference, like I said, and they have Western Kentucky up next, who's one of the better teams in the conference as well, followed by Middle Tennessee and then Liberty. So this is like a down spot in the schedule for UTEP, I would say. Having to go on the road to Sam Houston, not that easy, and their only other road game in conference so far was against Florida International, which, yeah, they did win that game, but I lean to Sam Houston in that one. That's, I think the line makes it look like there's value on UTEP when I don't think that there is. I think it's kind of false value there in UTEP, so I lean to Sam Houston in that one. In the NHL, I'll just mention it briefly. There's a standalone game with Washington, New Jersey. Both of these games played yesterday. It looks like New Jersey's a big -240 moneyline favorite at home. They're certainly the better team. They have 73% of the tickets, but 53% of the cash on the other side on Washington. Both of these teams played yesterday. Washington was in like the slightly earlier game. It started at like 6 p.m. my time. It was I think it was on national TV because I had it. It came on like TNT or something when I had it on. Washington lost at Tampa Bay fairly badly. And the way that started out, Washington actually looked like they had scored the first goal of the game really early in the game, and it got taken away on goaltender interference, and then it was just all downhill from there, and they couldn't really do much of anything beyond that point, and lost pretty badly to Tampa Bay. And New Jersey, who did they play yesterday? Both of these teams played yesterday. I don't have much of a lean in this game at all, but I'm just pointing out, New Jersey was in Montreal yesterday. So they were at the Islanders, then at Montreal, and now they come back home. So they have a little bit more travel because they're coming from Montreal back home to play Washington here. The spot, I guess I would say, slightly worse for New Jersey just because of that. And I think... New Jersey's definitely going to be the more public team here, so I don't think there's any value to be had on the New Jersey side here. Everybody knows they're the better of these two teams. So I would only look to Washington if you're going to play the side on this one. I don't think it's strong at all, but that's just the way I would look. And finish this off with the NBA play. I don't think I have much to say. I mean, it's the first full slate of NBA, so I don't know that there's much I can really say about the rest of the games that are on the schedule here. Looking at the market really quick, it does look like the market has some fairly strong indicators on the Detroit Pistons, who were like my team last year. And actually, I actually do like this. Actually, maybe I almost want to bet this. The Detroit Pistons, they were like my team last year. It seemed like I bet them as an underdog like more often than anybody else, and they won outright. Like it seemed like 80% of the time that I was on them, they were winning outright and cashing on the money line. It was like the only times they even won games at all were times where I was on them. So they were really adhering to those situational angles, the situational spots. I loved the Detroit Pistons last year, the way that I bet them. It looks like they are the play here. They're at the Miami Heat. The Heat are down from 10.5 to 9 at home. 67% of the tickets on the Miami Heat. Everybody likes the Heat. I mean, they have star power. They were in the NBA Finals last year. Everybody knows they're a significantly better team than the Pistons. The Heat are certainly a public team here, but there's 66% of the money on the Pistons. Looks like the number's going down and going towards the Pistons. So I think there's no value to be had on the Heat because everybody knows that they're a good team. They are the better team. I think they overperformed in getting to the finals last year. They were not the better team between themselves and the Celtics. Unfortunately for me, as a Celtics fan, that was brutal. I went to one of the games in that series, and the Celtics lost in Game 2, I believe. That was brutal, and the way the Celtics came all the way back and made it look like they were actually going to do it and forced to Game 7. They almost became the only NBA team to overcome an 0-3 series deficit in NBA playoff history. That would have been crazy. It was not to be, very unfortunately, even though the Celtics were a favorite in that Game 7. But all that being said, I think the Heat, they overperformed a little bit last year. I think they're overvalued coming into this season, partially because of that, but the line has gone down a bit. Like if you play it now, I still like it, but you've missed like the best numbers on this. Nobody pays attention to the Detroit Pistons at all. Kind of like last year, they're one of the like bottom NBA teams really, so they can easily be overlooked. Because this is like the first game of the season, you might say, well, Miami's probably going to be up for it. It's their home opener, but one of the main reasons people are betting against them is because they're in that like finals hangover situation where I talked about it with the Denver Nuggets, but the Denver Nuggets were the winning championship team last year. I think the team that loses the finals tends to have the more significant hangover effect coming into the next game, or into the next season, I mean. So you see that with like the Super Bowl loser as well. A lot of times these teams that made it that far and then they fizzled out and lost like right at the end there in those finals, they show up a little bit hungover and unprepared for that first game coming into this next season. So that might be the case with the Heat here. So I like the Pistons in that one. I don't know if I'm going to actually get to the metaphorical window on this because I'm betting online if I bet it, but I actually might. I like it. I definitely like Detroit in that one. Plus the 9 at this point is what it would be. The actual play here, even though it looks like the market might be against me a little bit, is on the New York Knicks, plus 3.5 at home. This has gone up from Celtics 1.5. I'm going against my Celtics. It's gone up from minus 1.5 to minus 3.5. And it looks like the Celtics have 88% of the cash, but 82% of the tickets. So it looks like there is some money on the Celtics, but they're the public team. Whenever you see, even if you see like there's a little bit of a money discrepancy on that side, if they're like a public road favorite like that, and the majority of the tickets, like a heavy majority of the tickets and heavy majority of the money are both on that side, I think that like money discrepancy is a little bit less of a strong indicator there, and I think in a lot of situations it makes sense to go against that team. The books certainly kind of need that team to not cover so they can actually make money on this because they have lopsided action. And that leads to like one of the main reasons why I'm playing this. It looks like a trap. You put the Celtics out there. Everybody knows they're the much better team. People know how good they are. They probably should have been the Eastern Conference representative in the finals last year. People know like they're one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. And you look at this line, you see it's only -3, basically. It's almost like you're just laying the Celtics to pretty much win the game here, win by like one possession, essentially. It looks way too easy to lay it with the Celtics here, and when things are way too easy, I think that they are. So what I was just talking about with that like lopsided betting action, I think when the books put a line out like that, even though it looks like they put it out at 1.5 and they had to move it up a little bit, they kind of know that they're going to get like a ton of lopsided action on that side. And the books are kind of saying that they're taking a stand there, and they think that it's more likely that the opposite outcome will happen than what the odds are on this. So they are basically they are gambling on it too. They're putting their money on the Celtics possibly not covering this. So the books are kind of saying that they kind of like the Knicks side in this as well, even though they have had to move the number up a little bit because the action has been quite lopsided. But I like the Knicks here, not only just because it looks way too easy and it looks like a trap to lay the Celtics, but the Celtics, they've had huge lineup changes with their starting lineup. They don't have Marcus Smart anymore. Al Horford looks like he's going to be coming off the bench now. They don't have Robert Williams, who's like their big, like physical presence, big man. He's gone with all these trades they've been doing. And Brogdon, who's kind of their sixth man, was a big part of the rotation in their playoff run last year as well. A good, like, all-around player, underrated player. All of those guys are gone, and they've brought in Porzingis and Drew Holiday, both who are going to be starting now. And Derek White is going to be in the starting lineup as well. When you have, like, huge star power come in like that into a new team, you don't have, like, that chemistry, like, right out of the gate like that. And we've seen it. We saw it with, like, the LeBron Miami super team. Like, this team, like, on paper should be the much better team, but they don't, like, gel right away because these players aren't, like, really used to playing with each other yet. So I think that's going to be the case here. You have two, like, new stars out of the starting five here. It's going to take a little while for this. They are going to be good, but it's going to take a little while for the Celtics team to actually gel. And I don't think they're going to be quite as good as they were last year, to be honest. I don't like these moves that they've made, really, especially the letting go of Williams and Brogdon. I didn't like that very much, even though Holiday certainly is good. But all of that, I think the Celtics are going to have a bit of a slow start to the season, trying to get that chemistry going, build that chemistry. And Derek White, of course, known for having that receding hairline fro, but now he's completely cut. Maybe people made fun of his hairline too much, and I understand what that's like, and he decided to shave it all off, but like with Samson, I think that means he's removing some of the source of his power. The source of his power is gone. We have bald Derek White now. He might not be as good as he was with that hair strength, the fro power. He might not be the guy that made that crazy buzzer beater to send that Eastern Conference Finals to Game 7. But anyway, I'm on the Knicks plus 3.5. And I think people might also look and see that the Celtics played the Knicks during the preseason as well, and the Celtics, I believe, blew them out. I don't know if they might have played them multiple times even, but the Celtics, I think, had the upper hand in those games. I don't think you can put anything into what happened in preseason. Teams are playing like they're bench players, and they don't consider, obviously it's not like a regular season game, so they don't play it like it is one. But this is the Knicks home opener. Knicks were a playoff team last year, and they got something to prove, I think. That's going to do it. Don't want to take up much more of anybody's time here, including my own. New York Knicks plus 3.5, unfortunately, because it's going against my Celtics. But peace. Enjoy the night. Enjoy the games.